This is the fire still burning on an oil tanker carrying jet fuel and a cargo ship carrying highly toxic chemicals that collided in the North Sea on Monday morning. One crew member is still unaccounted for, and the search has been called off after an extensive search. Luckily, everyone else was able to get off board both of those ships. Let's talk about this with Andrew Tettenborn. He is a professor of commercial law. He's an expert in shipping law at Swansea University. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Julia.
I have to say, when we saw this story yesterday, I think the general view was sort of, how on earth did this happen? Particularly as we know that the oil tanker carrying jet fuel was actually anchored and was completely static. And this cargo ship, according to the radar data we've got, literally just aimed at high speed straight at this ship in the North Sea. And a lot of us just wondering, who are not involved in shipping, how on earth someone didn't see this huge big tanker in front of them, and why the radar didn't pick up, and why there aren't any authorities that would pick up on that and go, hey, you're about to hit another ship. How did this happen?
Well, I strongly suspect there's no limit to the degree of incompetence that you sometimes find in people. It has been suggested that this was some dark op by the Russians, which I must admit I very much doubt.
Not some sort of sabotage, because there is some talk, isn't it, because this is a US flagged oil tanker transporting American military supplies, that might be why.
But basically, I can't believe that because the Russians aren't stupid, and it would be just so difficult to go to a ship somewhere in Scotland, find out who was going to be officer of the watch at a particular time, slip in large wads of $20 bills and say, just go straight into this ship. I'm open to persuasion, but my feeling is this is incompetence.
Yeah.
What you've got to remember is that these ships carry very small crews these days. There were probably only one or possibly two people on the bridge, and it's perfectly possible that the officer on the watch decided to go and do something else, leave the ship being run by automatic pilot. We don't know. Now, when the investigation happens, we're certainly going to have to ask some extremely embarrassing questions. Whether we can do anything about it's another matter, because the collision took place, I think, just outside our territorial waters.
Right.
So we may have to leave it up to the Portuguese government because the ship was registered in Madeira.
Right.
We may have to leave that up to the Portuguese government, but we're certainly going to ask some questions of the crew who've come ashore.
No, indeed. But presumably, though, I mean, these sort of tankers, these boats don't have, black box style like planes do.
Oh, they do.
They do. So they will be a record.
We're going to get. We hope we're going to get the black box, which incidentally is a yellow box.
Yep.
We hope we're going to get the black box. But no, if a ship is being properly run, this should never happen because it's got radar which will show up a blip several miles away. And if you have a blip dead ahead and there is someone on the bridge who's competent, they will say, wait a moment, we better do something.
I like to think that even I might have spotted that. There's some talk, again, that it might have been foggy and misty, but again, that's what you've got radar for.
Well, yes, but radar sees through it.
But basically, is there any sort of body like, equivalent of air traffic control that is overseeing? So someone would have been, some authority is going, that ship appears to be heading directly on course to hit that ship. Should I alert them? Is there anyone that in charge of that would mayday the ship?
No, there isn't. Basically, it's up to ships to do their own navigation. But the port of registry and the place of registry has responsibility for them. And that's why we're expecting the Portuguese government to do something about it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, of course, we've got to clear up the mess afterwards.
And how, as far as you're aware, how big an issue is that? Because there'll be responsibility of, presumably, of the ship of the Portuguese ship that actually, cargo ship that hit the tanker, because the tanker was anchored. I'm not sure how they could be to blame for this. A lot of ships are anchored.
Oddly enough, Julia, no.
I'm learning so much here. This is great.
we can probably make a claim against the tanker. oddly enough, on the basis of some retained EU law, which I won't bore watchers with, but which effectively says that if oil of any kind escapes from a ship and goes on shore, then the owner of the ship is liable for the cost of cleaning it up.
Right.
But there's a fly in the ointment here, that all ships have the right to limit liability in respect of casualties. They limit liability according to the size of the ship.
Right.
Now, I did a back of the envelope calculation, and it seems to me that the Stena Immaculate, the tanker, probably has a limit of about $24 million.
Which probably doesn't go very far at that
Which
sort
may
of clear
not
up.
go very far when it comes to cleaning up. And the Solong, which also could be chased, is a much smaller ship. That, again, back of envelope, I think is something over $6 million.
And that's the Portuguese ship that actually crashed into.
That's right.
Okay, so we could end up having to foot the bill for clearing up, and of course there's the ecological risk to local wildlife as well.
Well, oddly enough, to some extent we can claim, insofar as we're making the wreck safe, that's not subject to limitation.
Right.
So we can simply send the bill to the P&I Club, which is the insurance company.
And they have to do it. I guess I'm wondering how you deal with two ships that have both been holed like this and what you do with it. Absolutely fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Andrew Tettenborn, Professor of Commercial Law and expert in shipping law at Swansea University. Tom Slater, I think we both learned an awful lot there. This is my theory, though. It never underestimate incompetence. No. Someone's nipped to the loo, someone else was getting themselves a cuppa, no one noticed.
And I think, all the kind of cargo going back and forth all day, it's also just a law of probabilities, isn't it? There's going to be one of these things every so often.
Even though it doesn't happen very often, these things do happen. Again, it does seem very sad that we have seen one person who has died, but again, it could have been an awful lot worse by the sounds of it. Thank you very much indeed to Andrew Tettenborn.